Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're going to talk about somebody coming for the king, and they better not miss. Right? That's a great line from The Wire. When you come for the king, you best not miss. So who's coming for the king, right? Well, right now, I think Magpie Games is coming for the king for, the crown that Dungeons & Dragons holds with the Avatar Last Airbender tabletop role-playing game. So the reason why we're talking about Avatar Last Airbender today is it has shattered every single major tabletop role-playing Kickstarter record, right? Most backers, most money, fastest to a significant number, like everything. Like this thing, it has got legs, right? So there's a lot here. So let's talk about it. All right, so what are the facts on this? So Avatar Last Airbender tabletop role-playing game. This has never existed before. A lot of people wanted this, including me. I am not a backer, just want to make that clear, but I did download the Quick Start. The Quick Start looks fantastic, and to be clear, should I think that Dungeon Master should be running this? Absolutely. I think every Dungeon Master, this is the flow that I think every Dungeon Master should do. You play 51% Dungeons & Dragons 5e, okay? You play 0 OSR because it's doing the same thing as your 5e game, right? And then if there's a game that runs with a different system or a different setting, and it's not easily available within Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, go with God, right? Play it up, right? So I think as long as you're playing 49% or less, I think it's perfectly fine for any Dungeon Master to run a campaign of Avatar Last Airbender. And I looked, and this Magpie Games, man, they got it cracking, man. This thing looks hot. Now, it looks good. There are some issues. It looks good as far as they're doing a genuine effort to craft this and do well. So Magpie Games looks like they are doing their due diligence, okay? I do think they've made some missteps. But let's hold off on that for right now. Avatar Last Airbender TTRPG. Now, it's made $3 million. $3 million on Kickstarter. That's a lot of money. It's more than anything's ever made. The only things that are even close was the seventh C tabletop role-playing game was first to crack $1 million. And then I think Strongholds and Followers was really, really big. But I'm not sure that one really counts as a book because he was like, why don't you fund my studio with it? So I don't really, So as far as, hey, a new tabletop role-playing game, actually that one wasn't even, it was just some jank book for 5th edition, right? Who cares, right? But that did some serious numbers. But this is a brand new tabletop role-playing game. So Magpie Games, now let's talk about Magpie Games. Boy, this is a runt company, right? This thing is small. Their biggest hit before this was Bluebeard's wife, or I can't even remember the name. It's some PBTA game, and the reality is PBTA has done really well for an indie, but the numbers are small, right? And Bluebeard has never shown that they can make a commercially successful game. I will bet you the number of millions that Magpie Games has made ever could be counted on one hand, right? Maybe two, right? So honestly, I have no idea how Magpie Games actually landed landed the license, right? But they did, right? And actually, now there is precedence for this, right? When has this happened before? This has happened before, and it was, I think it was Frog Hat Game. It was the makers of Fate, right? So the makers of Fate, Fred Hicks, his company actually got the Dresden license, and it worked out great for them for a few years, but then Dresden just disappeared, right? So it wasn't that the tabletop role-playing game failed, it was that the Dresden series failed. It had a television show that got one series, one season, just never manifested, never really came to fruition, never really landed, right? So you got all that, and then that there's a lot going on there. And the other thing is, this is really interesting, right? Now, the reality is, basically, I think all these large tabletops, they really want to unseat Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think there's any like Paizo, Monte Cook Games, anybody that's a real business, they really want to unseat, right? And Magpie, they definitely want to unseat Dungeons and Dragons at this point as the lead, top 10 role-playing game, because at this point they're dealing with some real corporate masters, Avatar. So Avatar was big and it did well when it came out on Nickelodeon, and then Amazon bought it for a while, but Avatar really exploded when it went on Netflix, right? And Netflix put a multiplier on it, right? And a lot of people were like, I don't really care about Avatar. It's hard to watch. I've never seen it, and I don't care that I ever saw it. But when they dropped that thing on Netflix, first of all, Netflix got more subscribers than the next 3 streamers behind it, right? They are way ahead. And when they put a show down, man, you're talking like 300, maybe 500 million viewers. Like, the number of viewers they can put on eyes they can is through the freaking roof, right? And that's what they did with Avatar. And Avatar really blew up when it got on Netflix. So this is a huge property, and this means a lot for tabletop role-playing games. Now, where does this link to Dungeons & Dragons? Well, one of the things is, I have so much respect for Wizards of the Coast and for Hasbro, and I really think they're doing a great job with Dungeons & Dragons. And one of the things that they do, that they realize is, like, you do not overstretch your brand, right? And the reality is they don't touch Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro now. On the tabletop role-playing side, they do not touch the tabletop role-playing game license property. They don't mess with it, right? They're saying, no, this ain't part of what D&D is. They do a little bit here and there, like some crossovers with D&D, but overall, they're not like, they're out of the Star Wars game. They don't make the Star Wars game anymore. They did, and they're like, yeah, you can take it. We don't want it anymore, right? And FFG, frankly, I've been hearing they're not having a great time with that game right now. It's not selling a ton, right? And so overall, licensed property is incredibly difficult to get to succeed. And the reason why is, when you put up tabletop role-playing games, when you make a tabletop role-playing game with a large IP, these people are used to doing deals with Target and Walmart and huge AAA video game makers and movie studios, right? So they're like, how many tens of millions are you going to give us next year? And any tabletop role-playing game company in the world is like, 10 million? And they're like, no, how many tens of millions? And the tabletop role-playing game is like, we're not sure we can meet one, right? Like, so it's a huge mismatch, right? So I'm really curious what Magpie Games can do with this. Honestly, I love the game. I love that it's going to exist. I am predicting this will be a massive commercial failure. Massive commercial failure. And the reason why is the PBTA part, right? They think they're going to put PBTA down on Avatar Last Airbender, and that thing's going to carry them to victory. Ain't no way, man. PBTA is weird. Most people don't get it. I love it. I think it's a really strong rule system, but it is non-intuitive, and it is for the most podcasty, intelligent, charismatic, confident people on the planet. And there ain't a lot of those, right? So I really think this is going to be a hard stop, and that this game is not going to succeed. And if you think I'm wrong, right? First of all, how many people are playing Stronghold and followers today? That had millions. It's a footnote now, right? Who cares about it now? Same thing with 7 Seas, man. That was one of the first to break 1 million. That was a huge Kickstarter. It was absolute debacle. It went nowhere, right? Nobody cares about that game today. At the macro level, there's still a couple tables left or whatever. And the reality is, when you look at the numbers, there is not a good history of tabletop role-playing games delivering for licensed property. It just does not happen. So I ain't wishing upon their downfall. I'm just predicting it, okay? And actually, I would love to be proven wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen. And also, I'll give you one more example why I think this is going to fail hard, right? The last Marvel tabletop role-playing game, Margaret Weiss, right? She lined up with Dragonlance, right? Her company got the Marvel license. They got, and they were expected to put up millions. they couldn't get the raccoon under my porch to play that game, man. Nobody played that game, and it disappeared quick. Magpie, they got a lot of work to do. They got a lot. And if I were them, I'd put this thing on a different rule system than PBTA. PBTA ain't taking nobody to the moon. That's my opinion. Love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.